wanted to talk about just living in Rome, like people coming here for the first time, Susanna, they don't really know much. And
Right,
so we want to tell you guys where you should move to, where it makes sense. So we're going to discuss a different set of components for each person because we're all uniquely different.
right,
And so I wanted to get your input, just generally speaking. Let's say we're talking about a person that's a professional that needs like more of a quiet place, if you will. And so they might not mind being a little bit further away from the city. What's your take on this? Like, where should they move? What would be some good places where you would say they can get the whole combination that we're looking for? Like, if they want to work it from home, it's going to be quiet and they can be really productive, without too many distractions, too much nightlife,
right.
bars, and all that kind of stuff.
I think it definitely depends on what someone is looking for. Let's say that you do enjoy nature and you want to be, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be outside of the city just because Rome is such a, nature friendly city. I think there's so many green spaces for, your kids to play, your pets to play. So I think it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to go outside of the city. On the other hand, Rome is not just made of the city center and of like the cars and the street. There's so much more to living in Rome because you have so many spaces in the greater Rome. So let's say in the, like still within the borders of the city, still in the same province, but so many places are a little bit dislocated in order for you to enjoy the nature. And also like Rome is in a very good like location, I think, as within the country, just because you have access to really great lake, like natural escapes, and the sea is only a 30 minutes drive. So in the event that you enjoy those things more than living into a city, then you can definitely have as options the fact to living close to a lake, but also close to the sea in Ostia, close to, I don't know, greenery in Castel Gandolfo, close to like a small little historic town. Sometimes, if that's your vibe, if that's what you like more than going out, then you can definitely choose the location that suits your interests best. Also within the city itself, I mean, I've always lived in the city. I do like living in the city. I have so many options here, like each neighborhood is different. So if I'm someone that is more quiet, I would live in a neighborhood maybe like different from the one we are now, just because this one, as you may not know, is a very university neighborhood. So a lot of students here. So that means that if you don't enjoy the nightlife and the chaos of students just going and living in the city, then maybe that's not your first choice. But you have many neighborhoods like the one that I live in now. It's very residential, so you have like you have your parking spots. You have like people going for grocery on Sunday morning. That's a good vibe. So it's definitely chill. So it depends. I think you have the best thing that I can say is that you have options for each type of life you want to have, depending on you and your interests, on the way you want to conduct your life, you have your options. So that's a good thing, I think.
So we want to bring a little bit more clarity to the outer skirts of the city, especially the castle areas that are interesting for people that
Right,
want to have the proximity to Rome, yet they want to be, like in a place that's more like nature friendly and
right.
stuff because maybe they have a family, maybe they just want to quiet. And so, what are some places here? I know you mentioned like Castel Gandolfo, and there's some more castles there too.
Yeah,
And what's interesting about that area is of course, that it's actually pretty well connected to Rome, right? So you
very.
can take the train. So if you come here and this is like your first time and you're like, hey, I want to hold back with buying a car because I want to get to know a lot of things first, like the roads. For instance, what happened to me today, I was driving from the outskirts of Rome to the center, to
Right.
downtown Rome. And on the way there from Castel Gandolfo, there was a speed camera, which I didn't see.
Okay.
And so I hit it like, I think the speed limit was like 50 and I hit it with like 78 or so. So
Okay.
I hope it was not working. I'm betting
There's a
on
good
that.
chance it's not working actually, because some of them are not working. But still, like I know what you mean. You're not comfortable with the streets yet.
Right.
You don't know that. You don't know like how the traffic is gonna be, because I live here and I know what rush hour is here.
Right.
But let's say you have to head back to the Castel Gandolfo at 7 p.m. on a Friday. you're not gonna go there in 1 hour. It's gonna
Yeah,
take you like 2 hours and a half because everyone
right.
goes there for the weekend. So I think yeah, living in those areas definitely it's a good thing just because they're well connected, and so you will learn living there that you can appreciate staying by the nature and then also having a immediate connection to the city. So I think those
That's
areas
right.
are
Yeah.
a real good option.
What I typically do is my own routine, and some of you guys might do it differently, but what I typically do is, which I'm not doing right now, so I'm kind of exempt from my own rule for this particular stay, but what I typically do is I will not rent a car and for sure not buy a car unless I have figured out the whole situation.
Right.
The traffic, when it's a good time, and you know this much better than any person probably watching this video, unless you've lived in Rome for the same amount as Susanna
Yeah.
has. But generally, it takes some time to figure
Right.
out,
I mean,
and
in your case, you have your dog as well, so for
yeah,
him, it's gonna be very comfortable to be in a car.
right,
But I mean, if you didn't have a dog, some people don't have dog, then definitely
right.
figuring it out by yourself with your own backpack and just not having an extra weight that your dog might be sometimes.
So yeah, renting a car makes sense for the beginning, and if you want to get comprehensive coverage, I've gotten this. It's probably like $15 more per day or so. I think $13 to $15 more per day,
Makes
which I
sense.
recommend in any place because first of all, you don't want to mess with the car rental agencies because they're going to find a lot of reasons. If there's just one scratch, it's like, and so I always get like
Yeah,
comprehensive coverage,
and make sure
which
you take
works.
the photos of your car.
Yeah,
That's also like a very good tip that
exactly.
I learned while traveling. Just always take the
This
photo
is
or a video.
huge. This is like
They're gonna
huge.
try to charge you for things you didn't even know were there before, like
Yeah.
so.
Because when you pick up the car, the rental car, like I picked mine up from the airport and they had it parked in a way that I couldn't even see one side because it was so closely parked to the next car. There was barely any space to open up the door. Now imagine taking a photo on this side. It's practically impossible.
Right.
And so I still managed it, because I reversed and then I took the photos. But I definitely recommend getting a comprehensive coverage because at the end of the day, you don't want to be fighting with the car insurance companies. I'm sorry, with the car rental agencies. I had one incident in Hungary where I didn't take that package, the comprehensive coverage, and they were telling me, oh, this happened and that happened, but I ended up not paying for it. I found a way not to pay for it because
Good.
I had taken the photos, but when you take the photo, right, there's always like some sun impact too, or it like mirrors, so it's very difficult to see
Very.
the little scratches, right?
I
But
agree.
definitely do that. If you get a rental car, definitely take comprehensive coverage.
Yeah.
Like this is just the number one of the spot. But if you live on the outskirts, so we just want to go back to this a little bit. If you live on the outskirts, like the transportation is decent, right? But it still takes quite a bit of time to get in,
It
and that's
does.
probably why you have a car and
Yeah, I do have a
if you want
car,
to go
and
somewhere.
I like the idea of just being able to do everything when I go out of the house, no matter what I have to do. I always know that there's a way for me to connect to the next place. Whilst if you don't have a car, you might want to like just look at what's more convenient for you to do, just because maybe from point A to point B transportation could be a mess, while if you do point C before point A, then that could be easier. So that's a struggle that I want to avoid. That's why I got the car. Also, I don't mind the traffic. I don't mind, but I like having this extra space in my car. So having, if I have an extra bag or a very heavy laptop, I like that I can put it in my car.
Right.
So I do like that. That's something that works for me. But I do understand that I have so many friends that don't like that. They'd rather, like walk 5 miles than just being stuck in the traffic jam. So I do see that point of view as well. So I
Mm-hmm.
think having option, I would say, is the best thing you could have in a city or in a lifestyle. Whatever works for you, you can do. So if not having a car is your best option, then that's great. And there is a valid alternative, which is very important. If then again you're like me, you enjoy your car, you enjoy listening to music in your own little box without any, like without the rain, without the heat, without the cold, then in that case, I think Rome has a really good car policy as well. Like the cars are very respected. Traffic could be a pretty much a crazy thing, but you will get used to that. I mean, I did, so that's good.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And if you live in downtown Rome, you still have the options. If you don't want to have a car, not a problem, right? Because
Right.
it's very walkable and the city is very compressed. It's not large in terms of like square miles. I mean, it's big, don't get me wrong, but it's not comparable to a
Right.
North American city.
Right. No,
You
it's
know?
the city center is definitely smaller. Then if you have interests that are outside of the city center, that's when it starts to get a little bit harder. Just by walk. I mean, like you will definitely need to, resort to public transportation.
Right.
But I mean, you will. I think everything works. Like you have so many options that if you work from home and you don't need to get out of your house at all, then what would you need the car for, right?
Exactly, yeah. So it's all dependent on your lifestyle, on your professional life. And I feel like there's no right or wrong way unless you live in a very rural area where you're really deeply dependent on the car, then you have to have a car.
Right.
But if you're coming from like Canada or America where having a car is just mandatory,
You would
you have to do
appreciate,
that.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But other than that, yeah, I mean, living in Europe, especially in the city, it's convenient to have a car, but if you don't want to have a car, I don't think it's a problem.
Yeah,
So
you
if
have
you come
options.
here and it's like your first, whatever, 2 to 3 months, and you're like, hey, I want to take things slowly. I want to make sure I get the full rhythm of the place. I absorb all of that before I end up buying a car. And I did that in several countries I lived in Asia, where I was like, oh, I'm not going to get a scooter because I'm not really accustomed to the way people are driving there, which is in no way comparable to the way
Right.
people are driving in Italy, right? It's completely different.
When I
like,
was in Asia, I got the scooter just because I knew I could handle it. Like I was like, I come from here. I grew up like riding scooters that were like
Right.
not very safe.
Was it a Vespa or what was it?
The one that I have or the one that I had in Asia?
The one you had in Asia.
I don't remember. It was definitely not a Vespa. It was, I think, an SH something.
Okay.
So it was really small, but people. It was driving on the other side of the street that was pretty
Right.
hard, right? Because here you drive on the left, like on the right, and there you drive on the left. So that was like really.
So where did you drive? Was it Indonesia or?
It was Bali, yeah.
Oh, in Bali.
Yeah,
Okay.
everyone has a scooter in Bali. I think I met so many people that had accidents. I was so lucky I didn't, but also like I thought driving a scooter here kind of like made me stronger in a way. So I didn't have to. I had good control on my scooter.
I also had a scooter growing up. I mean, I was used to having one and driving one, so when I got to Asia, it was second nature. But
Right.
just like, and that's the same in any country, right? If you come here, you want to get a feel for what driving is like, and then decide for yourself at
Right.
what point you want to get a scooter or a car. But what's also important here is that if you come from North America, in North America, the roads are super wide because the cars are bigger, the roads are bigger, they're newer. But here, the downtowns, you cannot expand the roads that much,
Right.
because the buildings are already there, and that's why a lot of people have Fiat Puntos.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is, I'd say, probably the ideal car to have
Right.
in Rome.
Get a small car if you have to get a
Yeah.
car. The streets are super narrow, especially if you come from the US or Canada where you're used to huge spaces and like large streets. That's not going to be the case. Here it's
Right.
pretty narrow and pretty hard to get around with.
Yeah, very meticulous. So here you don't have much breathing room, right? When you take the turns and stuff, so you got to drive very carefully. And that's why we definitely recommend a smaller car.
Yes.
For sure. I mean,
yes.
if you don't live in Rome, if you live like in a smaller city somewhere else, or if you commute a lot, or if you go on long road trips, then a bigger car definitely makes sense.
Yeah, I do
right?
have I mean, my family has a bigger car, and we use it sometimes when we have to go on trips, like to another region.
Right.
It's the best ever. It's a bigger car, always has more comfort,
Right.
but we never take it out in the city. It's so
No.
hard.
Yeah, so in the city, no crossovers, no trucks. Sedans are already too big, in my opinion. I
Right.
would just get the kind of car that you have. Okay, so if you have any questions about like renting a car or buying a car, we definitely help with that. So we have full package relocation agency, and we help people move from Canada, United States to Italy. If you come from Europe, if you come from Latin America, if you come from Oceania, Australia, New Zealand, we also help people pretty much from anywhere in the world move to Italy. And so whether you need help, like I said, with renting cars, with buying apartments, visas, long-term visas, residence permits, we help with all of this. So if you're interested in that, make sure to click on the link below the video and we'll take it from there. Thank you for watching.